I think you'll find this video very interesting. I have here the GOLDENMATE Orion 1000 lithium iron phosphate battery. It's a 12 volt 100 amp hour battery and has some very unique features and specifications that make it quite a bit different from your typical 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery. The first big difference that stands out is this large color LCD display right on top here that gives you some great information and removes a lot of the reasons for having a battery shunt. As you can see here, the battery stated charge is at 43%. It's currently discharging at a little over 140 watts because I currently have it powering my garage refrigerator. I'll cover more about this display later. It has Bluetooth, mobile out for remote monitoring. Instead of your typical 100 amp continuous output BMS, this battery has a rated continuous output of 120 amps. It has low temperature protection charging. It has IP67 waterproof rating, which is better than the typical IP65. Instead of your typical prismatic cells, this battery does have cylindrical cells inside. In this video, I'll be opening this battery up to show you those cylindrical cells and other components inside. This battery is just packed with great features and has a great price of only $269 at the time I'm filming this. I should be getting a discount code to save you even more, so if I do get that discount code, I'll put it down in the description below and include how much you will save. Let me quickly cover here what all the battery comes with while it's charging. It actually came with a couple of surprises, something I've never seen before. It's very interesting. Well, let me first come back to these. First, I'll mention that it has an owner's manual here, which does have some good information. If I can find a link, I'll put the link to the manual in the description below. It does come with these M8 terminal studs and caps already installed. The protective caps can actually be taken off. Typical M8 terminal studs come with the lock washer and washer already combined with the stud, and there's a little indent that sticks out that keeps them from coming off, so they're kind of all as one real unit. But these terminal studs are different. All three pieces are separate, and you have to be careful not to lose these. And it's a little more difficult to put cables on because the washers slide around and sometimes fall off. And so I wish this came with the typical type of terminal studs. It also comes with these cable lugs, which is awesome. They appear to be tin coated copper, but I'm not 100% sure of that. Okay, so back to these wires here. The first wire is called a parallel communication wire, and it connects to the communication ports on the battery. There are connectors on both ends that plug into the communication port, either port on the battery. The owner's manual really doesn't appear to point out that these ports are any different. They're just called the communication ports on the battery. So regarding the parallel communication wire, you would assume, based on that name, it would be used for wiring batteries in parallel configuration. But despite its name, I confirmed with my contact at GOLDENMATE that this cable is not used for wiring batteries in parallel like you typically would. You don't need these cables at all to wire the batteries in series or parallel. The second cable here is called a communication wire. It only has a connector on one end. The other end are just the bare wires, and where you can hook some other type of connector to it. If you see the four wires here, they're labeled RS4. Two of them are RS45A, and the other one is RS45B. If you're not familiar with that, RS45A is a serial communication standard for transmitting data. The other wire here is labeled, other two wires here are labeled CAN H and CAN L, which stands for CAN high and CAN low, which they're part of the CAN bus communications standard. So these wires support two different communication standards. In the manual, they don't really they do show the pinout configuration here of these ports that I just mentioned. So what are these wires used for? Well, I reached out to my contact at GOLDENMATE and said that most people will never use these wires. These wires are used for some special requirements on some special devices that you and I most likely never use. They do show these wires on some of the diagrams, which adds a little confusion, to be honest. You think you need to use them, but you don't. However, if you wanted to figure it out, you could theoretically pick up something like this 485 to USB connector, or this CAN to USB adapter, and if you get your computer, and if you find the right software, you should theoretically be able to read the data from the BMS. I have no idea which software you would use, or the connectors, if they would even work. Oh, if you're wondering what this little thing is here in between the communication ports, it's a breather vent. In case the pressure builds inside, the case can vent. I'll get to some testing in just a moment, but first I wanted to talk a little bit more about how I've been using this battery to power my garage refrigerator, and I also wanted to show you a little bit more about the LCD display and the mobile app. In the summer, my garage can get very hot, and it really makes it harder on the refrigerator to keep cool. So a few weeks ago, I cut this hole into the side of my garage and to vent this portable air conditioner, and it really helped the refrigerator not to have to work so hard. And I can't express to you how much I love a cooler garage in the summer. It makes it so much more comfortable, and I can actually get some work done out here. I thought there'd be no way for one battery to power a garage refrigerator if the garage is real hot. So now that it's cooler, I thought, maybe could this one battery power the garage refrigerator? So I hooked it into my DIY solar generator. I added a couple of solar panels to keep the battery charged, and wanted to see how it could do. I'll have to say it worked okay, but one battery is just not enough. I've been running it for a few days now, and I've had some good sun, occasional clouds, but I've been having to chase the sun to try to get a full charge, and I'm not always getting a full charge during the day. And if you're new to this, chasing the sun just means I'm moving solar panels around, moving wires around to try to get the max amount I can get out of the sun different parts of the day. So it would be best if you have two of these batteries if you want to run it full time, but I don't even think two would be enough. If you had a couple of cloudy days in a row, I think you need 4 batteries, more solar input, and I think that could push you through a few cloudy days if it had to. And since I have this already hooked up to a DIY solar generator and I'm using it to power my refrigerator, let me show you a little bit more about this LCD display and the mobile app. Okay, so it's the middle of the day, it's about 3 p.m. The battery is at 44%. It looks like it might not fully get charged. As I mentioned, it's hooked in my DIY solar generator. It's got two 200 watt panels outside for a total of 400 watts. They're pulling in power right now pretty well. So right now, let's take a quick look at so the refrigerator is running at the moment. So that means we are drawing power from there, and it's about just under 200 watts. And as you can see here, the total input from the solar panels is 54. That's because, let's just say it's 300 watts total coming in from a solar panel, and the refrigerator is using 150, then it's the total input into the battery of 50 roughly. So I'm going to turn off the solar panel's input here and just show you what it changes to when it changes to a discharging status. Over on the right, of course, is the input and 51 watts coming in. I'm going to turn off the solar panels now. Now, as you see, it switched over to output. Now I got to turn the battery back on. As long as it's input, the display will stay on, but you have to manually turn it on. It times out after 30 seconds. So output now is 165 watts. So that's what changes as it's discharging instead of charging. Okay, wanted to do the exact same thing, but this time I'm doing the mobile app. So here's the mobile app here, and this is it. I figured it out before, but this is it here. At the top here, you can see it's the battery's at 43%, just like the battery shows. That it's kind of green in color inside the battery. If it gets below a certain percentage, maybe it's 10%, it turns red. The first thing I point out is the voltage of the battery. The current coming in is 3.4 amps. I think that shows negative when it's discharging. I'll do the exact same thing I did a minute ago. Turning off the solar panels. 45 total watts coming in from the solar panels minus the refrigerator running. The rated energy, I think, is how much overall watt hours has come in today. The full of time, which is kind of a strange label there, but I think that's showing at this rate it'll take 16 hours and 37 minutes to fully charge it. And of course, over on the right, there's a little symbol inside the charging rate, which means it's kind of orange. That means it's charging currently. Discharging didn't have that orange one in the discharging state. And as I showed earlier, we have this temperature here at the bottom. Change the Fahrenheit if you want. Now let's go up here, and I'm going to switch off the solar input, and let's see what changes on here. As you can see, the current and power changed to negative, and it charged from charging state to discharging state. And we're at 44% battery. So that's about all the mobile app does. You got a Bluetooth tab here to connect to something else if you had multiple of these batteries, and the GOLDENMATE tab on the bottom. It just has some information here about GOLDENMATE, and you can page through the different things they have. The dashboard here is the main thing you'd look at, and doesn't do a whole lot, but it is very much a nice feature to have. GoldenMate did send this battery free of charge for me to do an honest review, and if you've seen my other reviews, you know I always do an honest review. They also sent me a UPS that has a lithium iron phosphate battery inside. Finally, someone put a lithium iron phosphate battery in a UPS, and I'll be covering that UPS in an upcoming video. The battery is 100%. As you can see, we're drawing 138 watts at the moment. I've got the battery capacity tester hooked up to the battery, and I've started the test, let's see, about 3 minutes ago. And we're drawing 10.4 amps, and let's let it run and see how long it goes. So the battery capacity test just completed, and we got 106.4 amp hours, 1,351 watt hours. And just based on memory, I believe that is the most capacity we've ever pulled out of one of these 100 amp hour rated batteries. Okay, so the GoldenMate Orion 1000 claims it has 120 amp continuous output, so we're about to put that to the test. Let's go ahead and kick on the oil heater on the floor here. That's brought us up to just under 70. And the heat gun, which we are running 123.2 amps right now. The display on the battery is showing 70%. Alright, so this will only take about 10 seconds for you, but we'll run this for 5 minutes, and we'll see how we do on the max load test. Okay, so no problem with running 5 minutes and 124 amps. I'm going to turn off the heat gun, and I'm going to turn on the other heating element on the oil heater, and that's bringing us up to 146. Let's see if we can run 145. Let's see if we can run 145 for a minute. Okay, so no problem at 143 amps for a minute. I'm going to turn on the heat gun's lowest setting, and I'll see if I can crank up the amps until the battery shuts down. And we know the battery shuts down when the battery shunt goes completely off. 160 amps, 161, 167, 170, 175, 180, and there we shut off. Yep. So the battery shunt turned off, so that means that the battery shut us down. Now the battery has shut down, as you just saw, and I have real crudely hooked up a wire here to the battery because I want to show you. You know, typically when batteries shut down like this, you have to wake them up with a 12-volt supply. Some batteries come back on in just a few seconds by themselves, but this one, I've waited 30, 45 minutes sometimes. It will not turn back on. But one interesting thing I found, that you can actually wake these batteries up with a 9-volt source, which I find interesting. So watch. Now let me get the battery shunt up here. Look, when the battery shunt cuts on, you know the battery's turned back on. Now the display still actually works. The display actually will work, but the battery is not putting out any voltage. So let's hook this thing up. Just touch it just for a second, and it should just cut right on. And there we go. The battery shunt turned on. I find that interesting that a 9-volt source will do that as well. Okay, it's time to open this battery up. They made it really easy for me. They've got these little rubber covers here for the screws that hold the lid on, so I don't have to break any glue loose or anything. So I'll see if I can struggle here and get these things pulled off, and we'll get this battery opened up. Okay, so I got the lid off here. We have two 8-gauge positive wires and two 8-gauge negative wires. And in the lid here, as you can see, we have the terminals are screwed down. They appear to be tight. Glued down. They're glued down and they appear to be tight. As you can see here, down in the case, we have some screws all the way around holding this battery in. So let me see if I can get the whole pack out of that case. Okay, it wasn't too bad. I pulled out the pack out of the case here. And let's just take a look at the top here. It's BMS here. Don't know if, let's see if we can get a shot at that number there. Don't know if you're familiar with that. It's TC 1601-01-004 and SN6182400302. If you know what that is, put that in the comments. It's pretty big BMS. Let's see what we got here. Alright. Let me adjust the camera and we'll kind of spin around and look at the side and then look at the cells. Okay, let's see here. And here are those cylindrical cells I was talking about. I don't see any markings on them that I can find anyway. I'll turn it over in a minute and look and see if I see any, but there's a lot of them in there. I don't know how to count that many, but I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just right here, so there's quite a few in there. And these, I believe, are multiple temperature sensors. We'll check that in a minute because it does have cold temperature protection. The cells on the side here, and on the back side here, really not much to look at there. Okay. Let's check these and see if these are actually what I think they are. I have to take my glove off here and get a hold of that. Let's see here. So this looks like a temperature probe here. It's deep inside there, and that's what that is. We'll check that in just a moment. Yep, another temperature probe. Okay, let me get some stuff here and we'll check the cold temperature charge protection. Okay, I hope you can see this, but I have the battery charging currently. Got the battery charger hooked up. I'm pushing in 17 amps right now. I'm going to freeze this little temperature probe here and let's see if it turns off the charging. It should. Boom, there it goes. So let's warm it up. This should come back to about 17 amps here. And there we go. Right back to 17 amps. Okay, I'm going to check some of these other probes too. Now these top ones are really, they go all the way across on the other side here. They're very deep, as you can see here. Let's check this one too. Yep. Stop charging. Let it warm it up. There it goes back. And I'm going to go ahead and check these other two off camera. I did check all 4 probes and they all did work turning off the charging when it got really cold. I did find one more number here, identification, but I did some searching and I couldn't find it. It's GOLDENMATE T104-001A05. If you know what that is, please leave that in the comments. One thing I wanted to point out is, it's hard to see this, but there is a rubber gasket inside here that goes all the way around that protects from water getting in when you tighten these screws down. So what are my final thoughts of this battery? Well, I have to say I love this battery. I love the ruggedness of it. I love the color of it. It's packed with tons of features, more than I've ever seen on a battery. It was an excellent performer in my testing. It had 100. Remember, it had 107 or just under 107 amp hours of capacity, which I believe is the most I've ever tested on one of these batteries. It can easily have 120 amps of continuous output versus the 100 amps of continuous output for other batteries. When it was overloaded, it shut down just as it should. The cold temperature protection also worked just as expected. This large LCD display on top is just plain awesome. No more wondering what the state of charge is or how much is coming in and out of the battery. It has a mobile app where I can monitor it from other rooms in the house. With the low temperature charge protection, the IP67 waterproof rating, increased continuous output, state of charge right on top, I think this would be great for a trolling motor. But of course it would be great for anything else as well. I like these handles. It has these rubber feet on the bottom that keep it from sliding around very much. And right on the side here it has some specs, some of the most important specs about the battery. But as much as I love this battery, there's a couple of things I would like to see improved. One was these M8 terminal bolts, that the washers were actually separate from the bolt and they can fall off. There was one time that I did knock off the bolt and the washers in the floor, and it took me several minutes to find the washers. You could, of course, get another M8 terminal bolt and use on here, but you have to make sure you don't get one too long, because if you tighten it down in there too much, you could actually damage the battery. The other thing I found that I didn't really like, or that could be improved, is that as nice as this LCD display is, which I love, it does not show the battery voltage. And I found that surprising, because I thought that would have been like the first thing you'd put on there was the battery voltage. If it had that, it would be perfect. But maybe not all people care about seeing the voltage like I do. So overall, the GOLDENMATE Orion 1000 is a solid battery that I do recommend. And I guess that's about all I had to cover in this review. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.